Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Wharton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 267. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back, finally, with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Joanna Hennon. Joanna's back! We only missed one episode together, the one for the month of July, but somehow it feels like it's been forever, despite the fact that we've actually seen each other a couple of times this month and talked quite a bit. We just haven't talked to you. So today's episode is a follow-up to episode 253, which is where we talked about how to get what you really, really want and when wanting isn't enough. In that episode, Joanna and I talked about our plans to move home and how we planned to manifest our dream houses. Now we're back talking about what to do when you don't get what you want, how you want, where you want, and when you want. This episode really is a tale of two houses. So in this episode, you will learn all kinds of things. This is a nice, long, and juicy one. How to handle it when things don't go your way. What to do when you fail, and I say that within air quotes, at manifesting. Why, just because you're aligned, doesn't mean it's going to happen how and when you want it to. Why you need to be really honest with yourself about the details. How to know if you're tricking yourself into thinking it's perfect when it's really not. Why we sometimes limit ourselves and we don't go for what we really, really want. We ask, can it work if the process is misaligned? And is it guaranteed to work if you are aligned? We discuss why we don't always get what we want when we want. Why we sometimes get attached to a specific outcome and what we need to do instead. We talk about why you need to stay in the open space. Don't give up and stay open to letting it or something else in. Why we need to accept the worst case scenario as a possibility and not just deny it and sweep it under the rug. Why the mantra, everything always works out perfectly for us, has to be part of the perfect plan. We talk about how to avoid going into failure mode and blaming yourself and feeling sorry for yourself, and what to do instead. Talk about the difference between blaming yourself and taking responsibility and why self-reflection is important. And finally, things you can actually do when you don't get what you want. We also cover some questions to ask yourself to make the process easier. I think this is a really deep and juicy episode. It's about 50 minutes long. And we really get into the details of what the last 3 months have been like for us as we've been working on manifesting these houses. We talk about lessons learned and we get really open and vulnerable with this one. I'm really happy to have recorded this episode today because ever since we released that episode back in May, so many people have been asking me about the house, and I finally have an answer for you. So, without further ado, I will hand you over to the episode. Hello, Joanna.
Hi, Holly.
I'm so excited you're back.
I know. It's like been ages. I've been on holiday for years.
It has been like a weirdly long summer.
But at least we saw each other in real life.
Yay!
Twice this summer. How cool is that?
Yay. So, in interestingly, both of us had the same idea for today's podcast topic. And then when we came together to actually record it, it was very exciting to find out that we were both thinking the same thing. So a couple months ago, and this was 28th of May of this year, we did a podcast episode about how to get what you really, really want when wanting isn't enough. So that was where we talked about my house in Avebury and other things. And since then, a lot of people have been asking me, how's it going with the house? How's it going with the house? And today you will find the answer. This is very, very timely based on some news that I just got a couple days ago. So here we are.
Yeah, there we are. And in that same episode, I also mentioned one of my big dreams, or my biggest dream, of moving to Ireland and buying a house mortgage free in a few years. I also have an update on that because we spent part of our summer in Ireland. And we basically wanted to follow up on that episode and give you an update about how things were going, because I think, or we both think, that such updates and honest updates kind of are missing from a lot of the stuff that we see online, and people kind of tend to assume that the whole manifesting thing and living in alignment thing and doing the inner work thing is super smooth for some of us and not so smooth for others. And that's not true. Yeah, we just wanted to share stuff with you today that's all of it's pretty vulnerable and really honest. But we feel that it's really, really important to do.
Yeah, I agree. So today we're going to talk about how to handle it when things don't go your way, and what to do when you don't get what you want, how you want, when you want, where you want.
Yeah, so basically we're talking about what to do when you fail at manifesting. Or when you feel like you fail at manifesting, because that's what it is, right? We want to create something, we want to manifest something, and we think we're doing all the things or the right things, and then it doesn't happen. And okay, so it seems to work for some people, all the glossy people it works for, but for you it doesn't.
Yeah.
And what then?
Exactly.
So, Holly, do you want to tell us what's happening with the house?
I will tell you what's happened with the house. So 2 days ago, the owner of the house emailed me to say, I'm really sorry, but I've just accepted an offer on the house. And it's probably going to go through within the next couple of months. If you'd like to come and stay at my B&B before I sell it, you're welcome to come. If it's too painful for you, I understand that as well. And so the house is not mine. So I am going to stay in the house. And I'm really looking forward to that, to kind of say goodbye, not just to the house, but to the B&B, because, you know, the woman that ran it's really lovely. I consider her to be a friend. Saying goodbye to that kind of experience, which I've been having pretty much every month for the last year, because I've been going there on a regular basis. So I look forward to having that kind of goodbye time. I'm going to stay for a couple nights.
Yeah. So this is something that you really, really wanted, we know.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about.
Yeah.
And did your best to align with the energy of and set deadlines for and do all the things and whatever. And yet it didn't quite happen the way you wanted it to happen. Now, I mean, for the universe, let's just leave things open. You say it's not your house. We don't actually know that. You know, the person who bought it might sell it in a few years. There's lots of things that can happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, thank you for calling me out on that language, because that is one thing that has occurred to me. And that is one thing that I've kind of felt at one point during this process, like before I even got the news that it had been sold or that she's accepted an offer. I had this gut feeling that she's going to sell it to someone, and then those people are going to sell it to me. Like, now wasn't the time because I just didn't manage to get everything together, but it is my house, but not yet. So I have had that feeling. There are many ways this could pan out still.
Sure. And I think like it's important for anybody who's trying to create something specific, manifest something specific, to stay in that open space. The house might be yours, might not be yours. We don't know, but we want to stay in the open space to let it in if it chooses to come in, or to let in something better, right? Because otherwise you kind of shut down when we make those final decisions. Like with the decision of, okay, the house is not mine, comes a whole load of other decisions. Like I'm not good enough to create it, like I'm not capable, all these things. And I think those things shut down other paths that are possible for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did go through some of that. So yesterday I was journaling on it, and I was just saying how I felt. I felt like a failure. I felt like I hadn't done enough. I could have done better. Did a little bit of beating myself up about it. And I had to get that out of my system. Like I had it kind of milling around in my mind for, 24 hours. And I just thought I have to sit down, write this, get it out. Didn't spend too much time writing on it. I dedicated 1 page in my journal to it. But I had to get that crap out of my head. And
I think that's important because I think we tend to want to avoid feeling like a failure. But then I don't think that's the right thing. I think you need to acknowledge the way you feel. For me, like you did exactly, the best. They contained it. Like there's no point feeling like a failure forever and ever, but you can say like, okay, this is my space to feel what I'm feeling and to deal with it. And then I'm going to move on.
Exactly. I have 1 page to feel like a failure. And then I turned the page over and I wrote a gratitude list. And that got me out of it.
You could even have 2 pages.
Yeah. Yeah. Decide how many pages you need and use those pages. So this was an A4 page. This is in a small journal. So it was like an A4 page of I feel like a failure. I didn't do enough. I could have done more. So
yeah, I think there's a difference between like getting lost in that blaming yourself, because you can always blame yourself for not doing enough or not doing it well enough or whatever, and taking responsibility, because that's the other thing, right? That's the other side of that. And I think we do need to take responsibility for what's happening. That's the whole idea of conscious creation. So what do you think, like,
what could I have done better or differently?
No, because that's coming from the blaming space.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right? The assumption. Like I've been running these workshops lately, and I've been talking a lot about the assumptions that we make before we take action, before we ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. Especially when we ask questions, I find this is really important because we think that's a totally like good question to ask. What could I have done better?
Yeah.
But look at the assumption. The assumption on that is that you're not good enough, basically.
Yeah. That I didn't do enough, that I was wrong, that it wasn't enough.
Yeah. So I think for me, we need to all kind of step into more greatness and accept more of that greatness in ourselves. And so we need to kind of ask better questions that are based on better assumptions, So
what's the better question there?
One of my favorite questions is if you did create it to happen this way. So if we're going to assume that you create everything, that you're responsible for everything in your life, then why did you create this?
Right. So that was interesting because towards the end of my journaling, I feel like a failure, yesterday, I came up with some of those things. So the house was never perfect. Like I still love that house, but it wasn't perfect. So we live in England and many houses here are either terraced houses or semi-detached houses, and this house was semi-detached. Now my husband and I both do not like to share walls with people. Our current house where we live is a detached house. It's a very small house, but we do not share walls with anyone. And that to me and to him is really, really important. The house was not detached. And there were ways that I was thinking we could deal with that. Like in the wall that would have been my office, I would have put a bookshelf in there and that would have kind of, I know. So it's like putting a Band-Aid on something that's not quite right. But there were so many things that I liked about the house that it made it okay that it wasn't detached. Another thing we've been thinking about, because the house, the woman's currently running it as a B&B, and there is a room on the house that has a separate entrance that is perfect to run as a B&B, we were thinking about just using that one room as like an Airbnb. And I had conflicting feelings about that. Like I really liked it because that would bring an extra income stream. I have 10 years of experience in hospitality. Like I can easily, like I know how to be good as a host. Do I want to work in hospitality again? No. But I found myself listening to like hospitality management podcasts and like reading stuff online. And I was getting into it because it's like, I have 10 years of experience in this. And so I know I can do this well. Do I really, really want to do it? Yes, that's a great income stream. Yes, it's an easy income stream. But it also takes away some of my freedom because you've got to be there to do their breakfast. You've got to be there to manage, either clean the room yourself or hire someone to clean, but you've got to be there.
I think both those things illustrate something really important. I think like we tend to just naturally kind of limit ourselves and not allow ourselves to go for what we really want. Like, I think it's actually, I'm getting chills as I say this, so it must be really important. Listen up. Like, I think that we have this natural tendency to find it very difficult, if not impossible, when we're faced with something that's already really good, to say, actually, that's really good, but I want something even better. Because can I swear on this podcast?
Yes.
Oh, wait, this is my podcast.
Yeah, but you can swear on my podcast too.
Like who the fuck am I
Yeah.
to say no to this amazing opportunity that has come my way and say, meh.
Yeah.
I want a detached house, right?
Yeah. Like, who do I think I am?
Right? I think that's such a beautiful thing to like to be able to be really honest with yourself and say, no, these are the things that are really important to us. And I know like the detached house thing, for me, it's a fantastic example because my husband and I are the same way. We cannot share walls with other people. It really drives both of us crazy. We're both very, very sensitive to noises. We notice like every single sound. Like even having people like in the neighborhood when the boy next door plays basketball, I'm just like, oh my God, we're gonna have to go out and tell him to stop because I can't cope anymore. Like it's bad. So I understand how important that is. And yet, you know, we're willing to compromise on something when you have like an opportunity that's in real life. We're unable somehow to think maybe there's something even better for me.
Yeah. And the thing was, and it's so interesting that you say that, because I had a session with Cara Wilde, whom we've mentioned on this podcast before, and she was channeling her guides, the ancients, and I was talking to them about this, and they said, but this isn't your dream house. When you dream about your dream house, it's a different house, isn't it? What is it? And they said to me, the reason this house, the Avebury house, has come into your awareness is because that's all you can dream of right now. Like your dreams are bigger, but you can't allow yourself to imagine that as a possibility yet. So this house, which you do love, has come into your awareness because that's all you can handle, like planning for. And that's so true. Like I've journaled on my absolute dream house, and it's bigger and better than that house.
And what I'm going to say now, I think, is really, really interesting. Now, for all of you guys listening, Holly and I talked about this house a lot when this was happening. And none of this stuff ever came up.
Yeah.
We never touched on the things that weren't perfect. Yeah. I never heard about this thing from the ancients about it's not your actual dream house. So just to illustrate, like, you know, anybody who's trying to align with some kind of bigger vision, be really honest with yourself. Yeah. Because we tend to kind of just push down all the stuff where we're like, oh, maybe it isn't perfect. Oh, you know, I got this reading and they said it wasn't perfect. We tend to push that stuff down and not actually address it.
Yeah, because it is a great house. I love it. I love the energy there, but it's not perfect. Yeah. And there was a part of me that knew it wasn't perfect. There's a part of me that knew that I have a bigger dream. And there's a part of me that knew it wasn't quite right, even though it's so right in so many ways.
So this is just a really, I mean, and maybe for next time now you'll pay more attention to those details, right?
Absolutely.
And you'll be able to let in something even better.
Absolutely. And I feel like in some ways I was sending out mixed signals to the universe because it was like, I want this house, I want this house, I want this house, I love this house. But I'm going to have to share a wall with a neighbor, and I'm going to have to leave Dorking, which I love. Like, I love the town where we live. There's so many places to walk here. Just, I leave my house and I walk in any direction. I can walk for hours, and that's really unique. And I'm going to miss the woods because I love woods, and Wiltshire is very kind of open agriculture, which I love, and I love the expansiveness of that, but I knew I would miss the woods of Surrey. That's another reason why it wasn't perfect. And I know this is going to sound really ridiculous, but I've been doing my kickboxing for the last 3 years. I've been working, doing my gradings, advancing with this beautiful group of people whom I really, really love. And I really want to keep going until I get my black belt with these people that I've journeyed with for the last 3 years. It's going to be 5 years by the time I stay on track, get my black belt. And I had researched kickboxing in Wiltshire, and I found a kickboxing school that was like, 15, 20 minutes from my house, from my house in Avebury. But it didn't feel quite right because it would be starting fresh with new people. And it's like, I wanted to just stay on this journey with these people that I've been grading with and training with. And so that was another thing that was sending mixed signals, because I really feel like I want to at least reach that kind of stage with them.
Yeah.
And it's going to be another almost 2 years before I get to that stage where I can get my black belt. And that's not necessarily the end, and it's not like I'm going to quit kickboxing once I get a black belt, but it was like, it felt like I wanted to just reach that stage with the same people that I've been training with for all these years.
So again, like it's just a matter of being honest with yourself during the process. I think we can trick ourselves into thinking we're aligning, or we can really pull the wool over our own eyes, can't we? And then afterwards, when kind of that pressure is out of the way of working towards something or whatever, like when the chance kind of passes us by, we're like, oh yeah, but all these other things, right? And another really great question then to ask is, if this was exactly the right outcome, why would that be? And in your case, like you get to enjoy where you are for a bit longer, right? You don't have to worry about your freedom being kind of imposed on by B&B guests, right? You get to do your black belt. And we were just talking about this before we started recording. And Holly said that in 2 years, she came up with this 2-year plan. And I'm like, move to Ireland with me. So see, maybe we'll all move to Ireland and we'll live happily ever after over there together.
You moved to Ireland, I moved to Ireland, everyone's moving to Ireland.
You know, it's that kind of thing. Like, that sounds really fun, by the way. Yeah. Like, for us to live in the same area, that would be, country to start with, but area even. But, like, it might not happen. That's not kind of the point. But, like, even talking about that opens us up, doesn't it, to the possibilities of why this was exactly the right thing.
Exactly. So I have a question for you. So I was really jazzed about this house. I was so excited. I put so much effort into manifesting and visualizing this house because there are so many things that I love about it. But at the same time, a part of me knew it wasn't perfect. So what do you do when you're trying to manifest something that you love, but it's not 100% perfect? Should you not be focusing on that thing? Or should you be opening up into bigger things and focusing on those? Or like, what could I have done differently? And I'm not saying this as, what should I have done differently? But like, but I would be happy in that house. Like, it's not perfect, but I would be happy.
But why would you settle? Like, I think, are you asking me like...
Yeah, like
settling?
Should I settle? No, but like I said, I would be happy in that house. So like, if I were to go back in time and start this whole manifesting process again, like in May, should I have focused on manifesting this house, or should I have focused on manifesting my dream house?
I would say that you should have focused on manifesting this house, because look how much it's taught you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's helped you accept your real dream house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or reminded you of your real dream house. So I think it's the journey, right? Yeah. So I think it's good that you focused on this house, because so much has come out of it, basically. But it couldn't have been the right one for all the reasons that you listed. So when I talk about manifesting, I'm teaching a workshop on this tonight, so it's all fresh.
All very fresh.
Yeah. But when I talk about manifesting, like, I talk about it not that we create. I don't think we create. I think that word really, really puts us in the wrong vibration of hard work and struggle. Like, creating something from scratch is like bloody difficult. Like, how are you going to create? It just feels like efforting. Whereas manifesting, the way I look at it, is becoming. So you're becoming, you're kind of stepping into that reality that already exists for you. So it's not creating anything from scratch, just choosing something different. Now, in your case, you weren't choosing something different. You didn't want to choose to live there and go to that kickboxing school and to manage the B&B and to have the neighbors. And like, you weren't choosing to become the person who was happy with that.
Yeah.
It's like you chose not to step into that reality. Now, that doesn't mean that reality wasn't available to you, because it was. But it doesn't seem to me like you were ready to say, okay, this is it. Because that's settling then.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think that's a really useful way of looking at it, because there were parts of that reality that I liked, and I could have lived that reality, but it wasn't 100% exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's really, again, all of this manifesting stuff hinges on being willing to be honest with yourself, right? Like, I have the same thing with moving to Ireland. Like, could we pick up and move right now? Yeah. That reality is available to us. Of course it is. Everything is a choice. We're pretending when we say we don't have a choice, usually. I mean, I know there are really terrible circumstances, and I'm not trying to to bypass any of that. But like, normally when we say we don't have a choice, that's not actually true. We do have a choice, but I'm not willing to step into that reality at the moment for my own reasons. So I have to accept that, right? I have to accept that it's my choice not to do it right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I started out super gung-ho with like manifesting and focusing and visualizing and journaling and like all the stuff, May and probably June. And then July was probably where it kind of started to taper off. And I don't know if I gave up because I was going to Avebury a lot during the months of July and August just for day trips. But I went there a lot. Went there with you.
Including with me.
Yay! Yay! But I went a lot. And I really felt into the land, and I felt like my connection to that land, and I felt like it was right. But I was really kind of focusing on my connection to the land, not so much on my connection to that particular house and that lifestyle.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said about the alignment practice as well. Like when you describe what you did, like you were visualizing and whatever, and it feels hustly. The energy of it
absolutely.
Feels hustly.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of hustle energy at the beginning because I was just like, I'm going to do this manifesting thing and I'm going to do it right and I'm going to do all the things. And I had lists of things to do, not just manifesting things, but practical things. And I'm going to tick off all the things on my list. And did I do all the things I could have done? No. I slacked off on the manifesting. I slacked off on the visualizing. I stopped focusing on the house at some point. And I didn't do all the practical things I could have done. There was a family member that I could have asked for the money, and I didn't. And I didn't because it felt icky. I knew logically that person could give us the money we needed to kind of make this happen faster, but it did not feel right. And so I didn't do it. And I could have. Maybe things would have turned out differently if I had, but it didn't feel right, so I didn't do it.
And that has to be okay as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also a choice. And then you have, every choice is a consequence. And, there's just a whole web of choices there and of energies. And between that and the fact that your whole kind of alignment practice was misaligned because it was coming from that energy of hustle, of trying to make it happen rather than becoming the person who lives there. Or if it's misaligned from the start, then it's bound to kind of taper off, right? You can't really blame yourself for not continuing because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You can't. It's the same as hustling in your business or whatever. It's just not sustainable. You're going to run out of energy. You're going to run out of steam.
And that's probably why I burnt out after a month and a half of it and just kind of went with the flow. Yeah. So obviously you have to be aligned with the process and not come at it from that hustly energy if that hustly energy doesn't work for you, and it certainly doesn't work for me. So if you are aligned, 100% aligned, is it guaranteed to work? I mean, is there a recipe you can follow and make it happen?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah, that's
sadly. Yeah. Sadly, what's coming to me is no. I think that as humans, we get very attached to specific outcomes. And alignment isn't about a specific outcome. Yeah. So alignment isn't about that house. I keep getting chills again. Yeah. So alignment isn't about that specific house or a specific boyfriend or whatever it is. It's about a feeling of vibration. So I'm still going to say no. You will get what you'll manifest is something that matches your vibration. Yeah. If your vibration is hustle, then you'll get more stuff to be hustly about. But yeah, just because you've decided that house is indicative of everything you've ever wanted in life doesn't mean that's true.
Yeah. And it wasn't. Once I sat and analyzed it, it wasn't everything I wanted in life.
Yeah, it's the same for me. A long time ago, I decided that I can never be happy in Belgium. So I had attached this feeling of moving out of Belgium. And then my business would be, I would run a business and I would do what I liked and life would be peachy and all this kind of thing. But that's not true, right? Because it might not be peachy.
Yeah, exactly.
Elsewhere either. So alignment, I had attached to a certain move, to a certain place, and that's not necessarily the case. So, I mean, we also, I also have to accept the fact that we might not move to Ireland. That's a possibility. And I actually think this is something that I've recently been talking to many of my clients about. So maybe it's something that's in the air, but I think it's really important to accept that what you've viewed as worst case scenario. So what if it doesn't happen?
Yeah.
You don't need to give up. It's not giving up. It's just accepting it as a possibility. And every single time I've asked this question, so what if it doesn't happen? Right? What if it doesn't work? What if whatever you're trying to make work, what if it doesn't happen? I've asked this question so many times in the past few weeks, and every single time the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it's this huge revelation that you don't need to put that pressure on yourself to create this something else that even if it doesn't happen, you're still going to be okay, right?
That's really interesting what you said, because I've never tried to openly manifest something like this so much with my husband. And when I first started with this, he was really, really reluctant to get on board with it because he was like, if it doesn't happen, like, I don't want you to be really disappointed. And he was really, really worried about what was going to happen to me if I didn't get this house. And I said to him, I kept saying to him, like, I know I'm going to be fine, but I have to give it all my energy. I have to put all my energy and thought and everything into this and act as if it's happening. But I know at the same time I'll be fine if it doesn't. And I am fine if it doesn't. Like, yeah, I had some sad moments in the last couple of days, but like, it wasn't that big a deal.
Because you'll be fine. Like,
Yeah,
it's the same,
exactly.
you know, like if your business doesn't take off and you have to work at a job, like you'll still be fine. Like you'll still find things to be joyful about and enjoy time with your family and like, I don't know, like get a dog. I don't know, like you still do like normal life stuff that brings you joy.
Life goes on.
Life goes on.
Well, and I have to say, you will still do normal life things that bring you joy if you allow yourself to. But if you let yourself spiral down into that depression and you use this thing you didn't get as an excuse to be unhappy, then that's another pathway you could take.
Yeah, sure. It can spiral, of course. But I think probably anybody listening to this podcast is aware enough of their energy that they'll be able to catch it at some point and choose not to spiral. It's hard. Like, I really want to move to Ireland. And I know that we'll be happy there. And we spent some time there this summer. And like my whole family was so happy. Like all three of us, we just really felt at home. Yeah. It wasn't like this joy, excitement feeling. It was just like, we're just like quietly, calmly happy feeling, you know? But if it doesn't happen, then we'll be happy somewhere else because we're always going to choose to be happy.
Yeah. So do you want to share more details about the Ireland story?
Sure, just because it's a really good story.
Yeah, and there have been significant updates since we last did that episode in May.
Yeah. So originally, I think what I mentioned on our last podcast is that I had decided that the best thing to kind of aim for is to buy our house in Ireland mortgage free, because I've been concerned about like what our lifestyle would be like there. And I just didn't want to have that hanging over us, a mortgage. Now, since then, we've spent our summer in Ireland, and by a freakish series of coincidences, we found the exact place we want to live in. So we stayed in Galway, and my son had a football camp in one of the suburbs of Galway City. And we decided that that's where we want to live. And like, we just loved it. It had everything we could possibly want. Like, it was even better because we always said that we actually love the suburb we live in Belgium. So if we could kind of lift the whole neighborhood and put it in Ireland, we would quite like that. But this was even better. Like, I couldn't even have imagined. Like, it had really wide roads. I'm a very nervous driver. So it had wide roads that I could drive on and like make my way through. It had a bus service into Galway City, so I had access to that. It has a beach and a sports center, everything. I'm a shopper, so plenty of shops for me. It was just really, really perfect. And one day when we were driving my son to his football, I looked at, we passed this row of houses in the suburb, and I said, oh, wouldn't it, these houses look really nice. Wouldn't it be great to live there? And then I said, well, but it's on the main road, because the road we were driving on. And my husband said, just pointed into like the next street to the left. And he said, it'd be perfect if it was just in there. And I'm like, yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Because it was that bit was just really close to the coast as well, which is really important to us. And then we went about our day. We went into Galway. And happened, I won't go into details, but really happened by total chance, unplanned. We went to this cafe for breakfast, and then we looked where the nearest real estate agent was to ask questions about how the market works in Ireland and how long it takes and everything else. And it was right around the corner. We're like, okay, we'll go there. The man spent half an hour with us. It turned out that maybe it would be better to buy it now instead of waiting. And I said, well, do you have anything to show us? And he said, actually, yes, I do have a house in that particular area. When we went to see it later that day, it was in exactly the street that my husband had pointed to that morning. It's crazy. And on top of it, like, I'm really big on having like a little corner shop or something. I just don't want to have to drive everywhere because I don't like driving. Like, we didn't even know, but there's still like a tiny little corner shop right across from where this house is. And I was just like, oh my, like, it has everything, like including a conservatory, which we had on our list, but didn't really think we could get in Ireland. It had everything. And we just thought it was so serendipitous and whatever. So we made an offer. Fine. Now, since then, it's turned out that we can't get a mortgage for that house because it's outside of Belgium, and to get a Belgian mortgage is more complicated. So it's just more complicated. That house probably isn't ours. I'm happy to think that there's an even better house because that house needed some work. And that's fine. It would have been very easy to go into that, oh, this is impossible space. You know, when we went to the bank and they really couldn't, first of all, we couldn't get an appointment. Like it was all really, really weird. And they couldn't do anything for us or not enough because of the rules here. And it just would have been really easy to go into that it's not possible space. As I said before, this is on the way out of that bank that day, I actually said, but everything works out perfectly for us. So this has to be part of our perfect plan. Like, I'm sure the universe did not lead us to that particular suburb. Like by such chance, there were tons of football camps. There were tons. I mean, it's just really, really weird that we ended up there and it's so perfect for us, like down to the Polish store. I'm Polish, right? So this is really important to me. I mean, not like crazy important, but it's not like a deal breaker, but how cool that I can get Polish stuff right there. So I'm really aware of the vibration that we're in around this and just sticking to the plan, which was always in 2 years, because that's when Shane finished his primary and that's that, And staying aligned with that means talking as if we're moving. And also like recognizing the lessons, just like we did with your house, like recognizing like, okay, why did it happen this way? And I think it happened this way to like get our butts in gear, actually go to a bank and figure out what we need to have in place. Because we're not very good at that. We kind of just let things go and whatever, it'll be fine kind of attitude, And we do need to have certain things in place to make this happen. An international move is a big thing. We have to sell a house, we have to buy a house. And so I think it happens to show us that it's a possibility and to get our butts in gear. And so I'm really grateful, actually. Instead of being sad that that's not our house, even though I have a bit of sadness that like it would have been really nice if I could have updated you guys and said, I went on holiday and I bought a home, like I'm still really grateful that it happened that way, because now we really know where we stand and we can see it's completely possible to do in 2 years. There's no doubt. So it's all good.
Yeah. Now you have all the information you need, like the concrete, practical information to know that it's possible. It's not just a dream.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a dream. Like we've seen it. We can imagine ourselves living there. And this morning when I was thinking about it, I was thinking maybe I can go back to the dream of buying it mortgage free. And that I have to admit, like before when we talked, that felt really exciting and possible. And now that I know the prices and I know like I've kind of had my head in the numbers a lot over the summer to see the calculations, that feels really heavy to me. So not right heavy, like, oh, I'm never going to be able to pull that off heavy. So I have my own work to be doing.
Scary heavy.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's just to illustrate that like we can want it and we can align with it, but we don't always get to decide like when it happens and how it happens. And really the best thing we can do for ourselves is to keep trusting that it's happening in exactly the right way. Now, this is only if we actually continue to take the action, right? Because I think it's also easy to just sit back and do nothing and say it's happening in the right way and then nothing will ever happen, of course. So it is action-based.
Absolutely. And so like now that there's this offer in on the house, not sit back and be like, oh, well, I guess I'm not moving. Think about this possible 2-year plan and focus on that dream house again. Because before this Avebury house came up, I had like all the details planned for this other house. And maybe write down what are the features of this house in Avebury that I like so much. I mean, yes, part of it was the energy there is just beautiful because of the person who currently lives there and the kind of work she does with the land. And the view and that kind of thing. But I can take those elements and say, I want another house with nice energy. It's not like that's the only house with nice energy in the UK. Like, obviously.
No, of course not. Or Ireland.
Yeah, or Ireland. In the UK and Ireland.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get really clear. Like we had, as a family, we made a list of all the things that are important to us. And like each of us added things to the list. And when we saw that first house, because we saw a bunch of others as well, just to compare, and we ended up making a couple of offers and whatever. The first house was a little bit close to the main road. And my husband said, did we put quiet on our list? And I looked and we hadn't. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it had everything else, although we would prefer that it didn't need any work.
Yeah.
So maybe that should also go on the list. So
absolutely.
Help you refine what you want as well. And again, like if you're not kind of limiting yourself as to like what you're able to ask for, then it's all good, right? Because it all helps you refine to get what you like, really the perfect thing. I mean, how amazing would that be? I'm going to write close to Holly on my list.
Yay! Because that would be really perfect.
I know!
Don't have to take a Eurostar to see you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, coming to Galway will be even more of a trek.
Yeah,
so.
well.
It'd just be easier if we were both there.
Exactly.
So yeah, so I think what did we call this episode? What to do when you don't get what you want? You realign.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what are your choices? Like,
Yeah.
either you're going to let yourself spiral into some kind of depression and like life sucks feeling, and that's not nice. This is your life. Like, do you really want to live the rest of your days feeling like life sucks and you were somehow cheated or whatever?
Yeah.
Or you realign and keep focusing on stuff that makes you feel good and make a new plan, right? Based on the information that you now have, make a new plan.
Yeah. Give yourself time to grieve and then bounce out of it by making that new plan.
I mean, it does all hinge on that trust factor, right? Which is a practice and a muscle and all that, like trusting that it is really possible for things to work out.
Yeah.
And there's not much we can do about that. Like in my darkest moments, I also think, like, what if, and we've talked about this before, Holly, haven't we? Like, what if, like, I'm on my deathbed, like, I'm like, I've spent my whole life, like, aligning with what I want, you know? And yet here I am in Belgium, like, you know?
And I'm dying.
Yeah, I'm dying. Yeah, so that trust has to be there. Like, I just prefer, like, even if that moment on my deathbed is going to be really unpleasant, and disappointing, like, I still prefer to live my life and trust. I just prefer the way that feels to keep saying, but it's always working out perfectly for me.
Yeah, and it's so good to have that reminder, because we went through that when we found this current house where we're living now, which we're renting. But we were moving from London. We wanted to move out into Surrey. We kept seeing these houses that we thought were perfect, and they kept falling through for one reason or another. And I remember this one time we went to see this house that we thought was absolutely perfect, but they weren't perfect for one reason or another, which we realized later. But they looked perfect, and then they would fall through. And I remember this one house we saw, and we're like, it's absolutely perfect. We put an offer on it. And then like 5 minutes later, the estate agent calls me and he's like, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have shown you that house because it already rented this morning. And I just broke down into tears. I remember we were at the train station going home and I just lost it. My husband was like, it's okay. We'll find something. And I was like, but and then when we found this house, I realized this house was perfect for us. Absolutely perfect for us. How do you find a 2-bedroom detached house? It's so...
Yeah.
And the location, like everything about it was perfect. And I realized everything else fell through because they weren't perfect.
Yeah.
That one house that we thought was perfect that I cried over, it was really close to the train station. Do I want to hear trains? No.
Yeah, that's the thing. The houses that we put offers on, like, they were both great. We would have been very happy living there, but like one of them needed work and both of us hate that kind of thing, honestly. Yeah. And the other one was just a tad too small. Like just a tad, but it was a little bit too small. It had everything else, but it was just a little bit too small. So they weren't perfect either.
Yeah.
And maybe the one we end up with won't require any work. And it'll be the right size and it'll have the conservatory and everything else. So I think it's just really hard to see those things when you're in it, but it's possible. Like it's possible to train yourself. Really, if you train yourself to say, but everything always works out perfectly for me constantly, then like that's a big gift to yourself already, because it just opens things up. Like even if you have to kind of fake it sometimes, then still worth adding that to your routine.
Okay, there's one thing that before we wrap this up, I feel like we need to address. We keep throwing around the P word so perfectly. There's really no such thing as perfection. So should we be striving to find the perfect house, live the perfect dream, live the perfect life?
Perfect for you, right? I mean, I don't think like your current house would be perfect for me.
Absolutely not.
And probably not everybody would call it perfect.
Yeah.
So I think perfect is just a subjective thing. Like perfect for me has a certain number, has 5 bedrooms, a nice office for me, because we have different things. Like I was talking to my friend Michelle this morning, and perfect for her is totally, totally different. I want an office. My husband wants a big room. Like my son wants his creative space. So there's an extra room. Like, yeah, so I think we should strive for perfect for us. Doesn't mean that we don't kind of make stops along the way. Although I think trying to, like the house we're in, it's not settling. Like this house that we're in now, we've outgrown it. But when we bought it, it was exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody else called it perfect. Let me tell you, my house, I mean, you've seen it, but like our house looks like a witch's cottage, like in a neighborhood of like normal houses.
I like your house.
Yeah, I know, me too. But like when I called, first I saw it online, and when I called to make an appointment, they said, go and drive by it first. We don't make appointments until you've actually seen it. So
Wow.
I drove out here, like, and I was a nervous driver. Joe wasn't around. And I drove out here. I'm like, what am I going to find? Like, what's wrong with this house? You know?
That's so weird.
There's nothing wrong. It's just so many people didn't like that it looked kind of like a witch's cottage.
I never would have thought that about your house. I mean,
yeah, really weird. But for us, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it couldn't have been more perfect. So I think like your definition of perfect also changes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Right? So perfect for you at that time. So yeah, and I think when you think about it that way, then yes, you should be striving for perfect for you at that time. Yeah. Why would you settle for anything else?
Yeah. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that was really useful for people to hear too, because
and for us to clarify. I think like questions that come up when we talk about this stuff are interesting in themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I think we should probably wrap it up though, because it seems like I've been talking for a really long time.
No, we're good. So maybe some next steps really quickly before we sign off. So people have just listened to us talk for 49 minutes. And what can they do now? Like really get clear on the details of what they really, really want?
Yeah, this is
Refine.
Be clear and be open and be honest.
Yeah. Be honest with yourself.
Like, you're probably not listening to this podcast if you've got everything you ever wanted. So if you're listening to this podcast episode called What to Do When You Don't Get What You Want, then you probably haven't gotten what you want.
Yeah.
So if you feel like whatever it is that you want isn't coming, then be really honest with yourself. Like if this is, ask the same questions we asked ourselves now, you know? So if you did create it to happen this particular way, why? Right? If this is the exactly perfect thing for you right now, this situation or whatever, why? And what do you really want? Is it really what you say you want? I talk about this a lot in the context of business, actually, with my clients, because like I tend to have to remind people that a business is not what people want.
Yeah.
That is not like a successful business isn't actually what you want. What you want is like all the stuff that the successful business will give you or give you access to or like let you experience, but it's not the business itself. So to just be really, really honest with yourself about what it is that you're after, that you want to experience in life.
I think that's the perfect place to wrap it up.
Yay.
So happy manifesting.
Happy manifesting.
And we'll be back next month with something else.
Sure will.
All right. Bye.
I hope you found that interesting and useful. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about it. You could email me at holly@hollywharton.com. I would love to hear from you. Also, I would love to see you on Patreon. If you head to hollywharton.com/Patreon, that's Patreon, you can join me there. Membership starts at just $1 a month, and you'll get exclusive access to content I don't share anywhere else, including monthly Q&As, my afterthoughts for this podcast, group healing sessions, and all kinds of other things. So, I would love to see you there. That's hollywharton.com/Patreon, Patreon. Thank you again for listening. I will be back with another solo episode next week, and you can see the show notes for this episode, including the questions that we suggested you ask yourself, at hollywharton.com/267. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollywharton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.